Okay, it's been a while, but I'm back with another synth versus synth. If you've reached the point in your synth journey where you're looking at a $5,000 flagship, then chances are you're looking for a forever synth. A synth that can do it all and a synth that you won't outgrow anytime soon. Well, in 2026, it really comes down to these two choices: the Groove Synthesis Third Wave or the UDO Super Gemini. Both synths are engineering masterpieces that blend the best of modern digital with the warmth and imperfections of analog circuitry. But after owning them and using them both on many professional productions, I was so surprised to find out how different they really were. I've been getting asked on the channel which is better, but the truth is it really depends on a couple things. So stick around to find out what those are and which of these two amazing synths is for you. I bought both of these synthesizers, and the video is not being paid for by one of the companies, but this video does have a sponsor, which is Analog Cases. More on them soon. If you enjoyed this video and it does help you pick one of these amazing synths, please consider using my affiliate link to Perfect Circuit or Sweetwater in the description. It costs nothing extra for you, and it's a nice thank you if this video helped you decide. All right, well, here we are on the front panel of these amazing two synths. So I've started with an init patch on both. So the init patch on the third wave. And the init patch on the Super Gemini. Let's start off by building a patch on the Super Gemini. So we've got a initialized saw wave here. Right off the bat, we can see this beautiful poly aftertouch keyboard. We can go crazy and send this fully. The fact that this is right here is one of my favorite design choices. It's just so fast and intuitive to send things. VCA, like tremolo. Like, you can really get powerful, and if you don't want anything, just disable it all and you've just got your standard sound. It's also worth noting that by default, our init patch is binaural, which is another really big thing that the Super Gemini goes all out for. This synth can do binaural as well, as we'll see, but really the Super Gemini, it's kind of like, that's its specialty. It's a binaural synth. So what is binaural? Well, if we have a standard patch, it's 20 voices. If I start doing things like messing with the filter with an LFO, sounds really cool, but everything's in the middle. So then let's go click binaural right here. Hopefully you can hear that. Let's jump to the third wave and see how quickly we can get something similar and what the main differences are. Now, immediately sounds totally different, and we can totally get this same virtual analog style sound, but with these wavetables, we've got a whole bunch of different wavetables, which I can show you with a graphic, and we see this, it's going to load. As we move through the wave, we've got this wave flow button where we can basically choose to smooth them or have them not smooth, and basically go ahead, oops, sorry about that. By having them smooth like this, we can now use our wave surfer. We could use an LFO, let's, mod wheel, let's go ahead and assign LFO 1 to the wave offset. And again, I don't want to get too into modulation right now. We're losing some of those those performance features. This doesn't have poly aftertouch, it has standard aftertouch, and it doesn't have that ribbon controller, but you're getting a much deeper sound engine, in my opinion. So a couple other unique things the third wave can do. So if we just decide, hey, we don't want those crazy wavetables, let's go ahead and we'll just use a standard virtual analog shape. So that's what we were hearing on the Super Gemini before. If that's sounding a little bit digital for you, then we go into miscellaneous here and we can grab what is called the circuit drift, which I absolutely love. Let's bring it back down to about, 82 here. Like, come on, I literally own analog synths, and to me, that sounds analog. That's amazing. If we want even more kind of details here, we've got these free running analog oscillators we can turn on. Right, and if you're feeling a little bit lonely here, you're feeling like, oh, it's not stereo, it's not binaural, then easy. We can literally just go here and we go ahead, copy part 1 to part 2. Both of these synths are absolutely massive, not only in sound, but in size as well, which means that if you're investing in high quality but heavy synthesizers like this, then you need a stand system that is equally reliable and high quality. And that brings me to the sponsor of today's video, which is Analog Cases and their brand new XTS Performance Stand System. For those of you that have been watching my channel for a while, you'll know I'm pretty cautious about bringing on sponsors to my videos because I really just don't want to be peddling garbage at you guys. So when Analog Cases offered to let me check out their brand new line of high quality performance synth stands, I was skeptical, but I went in and I have to say, these are some of the highest quality stands I've tried. This has replaced my old stand system in my studio. The XTS Performance Stand comes in several different bundles based on what your needs are. I'm currently using the 2-tier with flex table and flex shelf, which has been great for being able to store both flagship synths, little MIDI controllers, pedals, and more. And each of these XTS Performance Stand packages is built with the same high quality material that you can really rely on. The XTS Performance Stand is an ultra-stable wide frame stand that is built with synthesizer players in mind first, and with that in mind, it is absolutely able to accommodate even the most heavy and beastly synths like the Super Gemini and the third wave. If you're building out your dream synth studio and you're looking for a high quality stand, then click the link in my description to learn more about XTS Performance Stands and get one for yourself. Thanks so much to Analog Cases for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to the comparison. Now there's so much more the third wave can do, but I'm going to jump back to the Super Gemini to show you kind of what it can do in the digital realm that makes it unique. Turn off binaural for a sec. And we're going to change away from sawtooth. There's so many different waveforms, I'll just go through them quickly. We've got sine, saw, square, triangle, noise, pulse, and then the most interesting, as you can see here, it's going to change our waveforms. Now you might be thinking, amazing, this is exactly like the third wave, but that is not correct because these are individual waveforms, whereas the third wave is a wavetable, meaning that here we can kind of fake it a little bit by getting our wave and we can modulate from one to the other like this. Let's change through some of these. Beautiful sounding waveforms. But what we're just only doing is we are going from one step to a second step versus here, because it's a dedicated wavetable synthesizer, we have a full table of 64. So right off the bat, if you like wavetables, this is the synth for you, this is not the synth for you. Here, the wavetables, they sound amazing, and on both synths you can load your own waves, but here they are really more of a bonus feature than a dedicated wavetable synthesizer. However, this does have a really unique trick that this one can't do, and that is the Super DDS oscillator. So I'm going to turn this off for a second. And as you can see right now, we're only hearing one single waveform, this small little waveform, nothing special. Then we click on the Super DDS. This just works for oscillator 1. What's going on here? It sounds way bigger. We've got like almost a Roland Supersaw JD800 style Supersaw sound out of one oscillator. We still have all 20 voices. And this works with anything. We've got different waves. So cool, right? Like, let's go to sine waves, the most basic waveform. We can go to our more intense mode with the full on. That was just half before. Bring in a little bit of the other oscillator on noise. Again, without anything. Let's try on a saw so it's easier to hear. Like, you're in pad heaven already, just with that. Let's go back to the third wave, and you'll see we can't really do that. This is where, again, this synth, the name of the game is you can kind of almost get to almost any other synth because of how powerful it is, but you do have to be a little bit creative. Let's see, init program. Let's go to a random waveform. We can go into unison and we can kind of stack, but we lose voices. So again, this synth can really do anything because it's so powerful, but you have to use your brain a little bit and think, and there's usually a trade-off. For example, here we preserve our 20 voices if we do this amazing Super DDS sound. Here, I've turned this into, somebody do quick math, 6 voice, so. Say we get some voice stealing. If you don't want to lose your voices, but you still want that unison sound, there is a dedicated Supersaw waveform, which sounds epic. Add some of that circuit drift. But we're limited to just that one waveform, right? If we switch back to wavetable, we don't get it anymore. Okay, next up, comparing the analog filters, which in my opinion is one of the most important things for defining a synth's characteristic. So I've made this really similar pulse width modulation binaural patch. And I'm gonna show you the different filter characteristics. So each of these synths has some really cool tricks up its sleeve with the filters. And I will be honest, this is my favorite filter on any synth. It's the same as the Prophet 10. And here they have some great tips and tricks. So we have a saturation knob. If you just want that extra grit, but if you want it to be more bell-like, we can turn up the resonance and just get this beautiful. It's a gorgeous filter, really, like honestly. So with no saturation, it's kind of a trade-off here. You want to always match your levels, your relative levels, with how much saturation you're using. So if I'm using no saturation, I'm going to turn my level up. If I'm using a lot of saturation, we've got a bass compensation, which I never use. Not that it sounds bad, it sounds lovely, but I personally like using a filter almost as an EQ here, so yeah. Just gorgeous filter. It's so good. Probably one of my favorite things about this synth is that you get 24 of these beautiful analog Prophet 10 filters. The Super Gemini though is no slouch. So here we have 3 filter modes. So this is kind of our basic one. Like any ladder filter, you're gonna basically have your bass drop out on both of these. So again, the way we compensate that, if we don't want to play with the drive, is we have this envelope level here. And what's really worth noting is this is actually after the filter, so you're not going to be able to have quite as much control driving the filter as you would on the third wave, because you don't get the duality of the saturation and level knob. But if we do want to drive the filter, we have these beautiful drive modes here, which I use mostly when I'm using the synth, unless I want something really airy. I mostly use it on drive 1 or 2. Drive 2. Listen to that compared to the nothing. It's a beautiful sounding filter drive. Let's key track it. It's so cool. If you're watching my channel for the first time, I swear I usually make better sounds than this, but there's no real way to test a filter without getting a couple of horrible resonance sounds. It's not going to be exact, but hopefully you can hear the difference there. If I were to describe them in one sentence each, the third wave's analog filter is gritty. The Super Gemini's analog filter is brassy. Do with that what you will with the information, but they're both lovely filters. I'm giving a slight edge to this. However, where the Super Gemini has a huge advantage is it has also an analog high-pass filter. If you've used a synth like the MS-20 or the Prophet 6, then you know how valuable having an analog high-pass filter is. I believe it's 12 dB per octave, whereas the main analog filters on both of these are 24. Like, listen to all that mud we just shaved off. Shave it off. The fact that they work in tandem together and they're both analog, it really opens up a ton of tone shaping when you pair it with the drive, and then you can make up the compensated gain after with the VCA gain. I'm nerding out here, but it's a really powerful filter section. So what does the third wave have? Well, it has a second filter, one that is digital, but it's a state variable filter, meaning it can do high pass, low pass, or my favorite, notch. We already touched on modulation briefly, but I think it's worth highlighting on both synths because it's a totally different philosophy. So here on the third wave, we have this massive destination that we can do whatever we want, and we do this by assigning a source, let's say LFO4, and then a destination, let's say the state variable mode. Go into LFO4, change the shape, let's go ahead and let's do something new here. We'll grab a new one. Let's make it aftertouch, and we'll make it go for the rate of that LFO we just assigned. It really is that easy. One of my favorite things to do, especially now that the third wave supports samples, is grab a sample. I have this Rhodes in here. Let's put it up an octave, and let's have that fade in with some modulation. So let's make that come in over time with one of the auxiliary envelopes. So let's go ahead and change this to oscillator 3 level, and we'll go ahead and crank that amount. We'll go ahead and make there be a delay. Now we bring in our, let's make this a little softer. Just absolutely beautiful, right? Let's go ahead, we still probably have some, yeah, we have an LFO here. Let's go ahead and assign this to all of our frequencies, just do it subtly. Like, look at that, totally unique sound, and we're not even close to done. Like, we can now grab our oscillator, and let's do some FM here. Let's do some FM for oscillator 1. Change the wavetable. On the UDO Super Gemini, it's all about hands-on control, like I showed you here with this lovely corner box. We not only get this awesome keyboard with poly aftertouch, but we get a really capable kind of Roland style pitch joystick. So I'm using that like a mod wheel. So if you want to free up LFO2 to just be used by this, or just honestly just function on its own, you can do that. So here I've got our binaural pulse width patch, and I'm just going to grab whatever I want to modulate with. Let's say ribbon controller to something crazy like cross mod. Oh, let's do something else here. Let's do DDS2 to, let's see, high pass filter. Let's go aftertouch to the LFO1 rate. I guess I already have it here. My bad here. Right? So quick and so powerful. And the only trade-off is you're gonna have to remember what you have assigned. And if you decide you don't want it anymore, you're gonna have to go Shift and then clear it. Final section here, and I know there's so many things to cover which I won't be able to get into, like arpeggiators and sequencers and bitimbrality. They're both great for bitimbrel sounds, but this is 4-part, this is 2-part. This has a better sequencer. This does have a sequencer, but I think this has a better arpeggiator. That's my quick notes on that. The most important thing is the effects. And here I will say the third wave is just pretty unbeatable. It has a full suite of effects, everything from your standard choruses, distortions, delay, but it has some really cool ones as well, such as the super plate reverb, which is an absolutely cavernous reverb. Reminds me a bit of like a Strymon reverb. And you can modulate all these, right? Like, let's go ahead and let's change it to the modulate the pre-delay. Too weird. But maybe we mix it in a little bit. So cool, right? Another one of my favorite effects, and I'm not gonna be able to show all these, is the Echoplex, which is genuinely phenomenal. Let's get rid of this crazy modulation here. We get our own like wow and flutter control. On the Super Gemini, we don't get nearly as many effects, but again, it's going for that hands-on, sort of intuitive, not too many options vibe that the synth really goes for. So here we have a delay. I really like doing car plus strong sounds on the delay. I think that it's a high enough clock rate. I guess somebody tell me if that's the correct terminology. It does them really cleanly. I think the digital delay here is higher quality than the one in the third wave. That's not scientific, that's just kind of how I feel. It feels very high resolution. And you absolutely can modulate them. So here we have the delay time being modulated. Some weird stuff going on, I really like it. And for the chorus, I'm just gonna turn off the delay quickly. It's like Juno inspired, but here's my hot take. It's still digital. To me, there's no point in having a one button chorus if it's not analog. I can't imagine it would have been that much more expensive to put an actual analog chorus in here, and that would have been insane. That would have genuinely changed the game. Digital delay I'm totally fine with, but analog chorus. I find I very rarely use the chorus on the Super Gemini, but it's not bad. It's just really clean. And overall, again, effects I'm gonna give to the third wave. But if it sounds like I'm being overly harsh on the Super Gemini, I'm absolutely not, because hopefully throughout the video, you've been able to see that while here, I'm using this screen, which has a little bit of a lag to it. I have to say, it's not the funnest screen to use. Here, I'm completely in the zone. All right, well, that's enough of a comparison, but before we get to the sounds on their own, I'm gonna talk about my pros and cons, and as promised, who I think each synth is for. So, drumroll please, which one do I think is an overall better synth? Well, unfortunately, I'm giving the biggest cop-out answer ever, because they really are both so good, but just really for different people. If you're more of a player and more of an explorer, Super Gemini is unparalleled. If you want the most powerful hybrid synth that money can buy that sounds like $1 million, then go for the third wave. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you want to pick up either of these synths, it would mean the world to me if you use my Perfect Circuit or Sweetwater affiliate links. They cost nothing extra for you, and it's a nice way to say thank you if this video helped you decide on which synth to buy. And also, if you do end up getting one or both of these synths, I have custom patch banks available for both. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks again to Analog Cases for sponsoring this video, and let's jump to some outro sounds.